See, let's get everybody in and I'll get us started as soon as I see I don't want to get us started without seeing a few more names on the board. All right. Hello and welcome to Ion ESI. It is our first Ion ESI webinar for January for 2025. We've got a great year planned. We've got some really great guests coming up. And today, of course, I'll announce it in a minute, but my name is Maribel Rivera. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Client Engagement at ACEDS, which basically just means I head up the community, our membership, our partnerships. I am joined today by our President, Mike Quartararo, and our partner, Jared Coseglia of True Staffing. He is CEO and founder there. And our special guest, and we're going to have more of these throughout the year, is Stefan Dooley, Director of ediscovery and litigation support at Sullivan and Cromwell. Hello, good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. How are you, my friends?
How are we all doing? Everyone good? Staying warm?
Cold.
Awesome.
Cold.
All right. We've got a lot to cover. This is 30 minutes. If you're joining us for the first time, let us know in the chat. We'd love to know that you're a first timer. If you've been here before, also let us know in the chat because we like to see those hands and who we're talking to. For first timers, if you've never joined us before, this is how it goes. This is a quick 30 minutes. Throw your questions in the chat. This is a very interactive discussion. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your comments, your feedback, your questions. We're here to answer them. So we want to know all about that. I just saw somebody's a member since 2021. Thank you for being a member. We are also celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. So that's a big one for us. And Jared, I believe you said it's 15 for you as well.
Yes, so, True turned 15 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So we are double anniversary. So we're going to kick it off. And Jared, what do you got to show us today?
Well, today we are going to take a look at the whole year in review. We now have December metrics. We are going to look at all the trends from last year, talk a little bit about the predictions for the year ahead, and then really dive into the data from last year so we could just see why things are predicting to be the way we believe they are. And we added one new thing here. We realized that people are asking us, and we were talking about this when we were preparing for this with Stefan, like, where are you getting all this data? Where does all this data come from? And it's not just placements that True makes. It comes from a lot of different sources. Obviously, the work that we do and the people we talk to, but just to give you a sense of that scope, we had almost 2,000 unique individuals that we presented for different opportunities in calendar year 2024. And that's just in ediscovery. That excludes other disciplines, with over 13,000 inbound ESI applicants. And that's inbound. That doesn't include people we may be communicating with proactively who aren't necessarily sending us their resumes. So just to give you a sense of the volume of where this data comes from, and all those applicants often come with lots of information about salary and compensation and desires and wants and hopes and dreams. And we hope that we capture all of that metrically. We're also in ongoing conversations. We actually tracked it over 400 individuals, unique individuals who are responsible for making hiring decisions in ediscovery. So a lot of this data comes from those conversations as well. The hard data comes from hard data, meaning salaries are actual salary data. We don't do surveys on salary information, meaning we're not asking people what they make. This is for survey purposes. This is actual transactions that we witness occurring. So hopefully that's helpful in giving everybody a little bit of a more enriched sense of where this information comes from.
And Jared, very quickly, we've got some questions already.
Great.
I mean, it's a high level question, but what is an ESI job seeker?
An ESI job seeker is someone who is looking for work. So those are what we call candidates. An ESI job seeker is somebody who, and they may be passive or active. Active meaning, hey, I want to go actually conduct interviews. Passive meaning, I'm considering the opportunity to explore the market. I'm looking for intelligence. I want to understand what my options are. But job seekers are the candidates, right? A client or a hiring manager, as I refer them to, would be the people on the employer side of things who are bringing information or making decisions about hiring individuals. No
Great.
question too small.
No. Awesome. Thank you. And this encompasses everything, right? From forensic investigators all the way across.
It does. And it includes everything from executive level, what we consider partner placement, e-discovery practicing attorneys, people that are peers of Stefan, directors of lit support, all the way down to entry-level analysts. Yes.
And practice groups.
Practice groups too. We are definitely moving practice groups, 100%. So the practicing attorneys, and look, as we kind of alluded to in the fourth quarter of last year, practicing attorneys who are rainmakers and revenue generators and bring books of business and have origination are definitely making moves in the job market in 2024. And we anticipate there'll be more of that in 2025. Companies are looking for it, and they realize that e-discovery does follow partners who practice the art of e-discovery, separate from, broad litigation as a sort of nomenclature, are now really able to monetize that experience in those relationships, for sure.
I love that. I love the art of e-discovery.
We start every month by kind of giving some of the hot jobs. And this, really shows you where, again, we are sort of at with the bulk of the hiring still is in the middle of the marketplace. There are lots of project manager jobs available. There are lots of senior analyst relativity 1 jobs available. We're starting to see legal AI jobs become available, and e-discovery professionals sometimes are ripe for those, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's exclusive just to e-discovery. A lot of law firms are looking to reposition or repurpose talent to do things that service the firm in other ways that are AI related. And you hear a whole different set of technologies that are being utilized in that regard. Things like Harvey, CoCounsel, Vincent, Evercron, FileRead, just to name a few. It's a real renaissance moment. I know Stefan has probably explored a lot of those, and can see that there's an intersection there of how e-discovery people may be wielding those tools in the future.
100% agree. We're always looking at ways to expand our value and make sure that we're defining in a way that's in line with where the client is going. So looking at things that are multidisciplinary is definitely a focus.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, I think, one of the things that for me is a big prediction, and we kind of go into predictions in a second. I know we can look at the kind of big takeaways from last year, but I think you're going to see corporate who has really had their hands on a lot of AI technology, in-house corporate legal departments. I think you're going to see corporate sort of driving a lot of how law firms engage or don't engage with AI technology based on pricing models changing and new services becoming available based on the demands and needs of what their corporate clients are asking for, and where technology and human capital sort of intersects within those needs. It's not, I think everybody's sort of, well, I shouldn't say I think everybody's sort of past this AI is going to take my job. But I think a lot of us in the legal community, and this top job is indicative of that, have moved towards, AI could actually create a new job for me that has a higher bill rate and impacts the business in a more meaningful way than what I was typically doing with my time for the business. And those jobs are going to become available in 2025, for sure.
So we have a question about, are these stats exclusive to USA? And I know we're starting to expand into Europe and United Kingdom, but their question is, they're freezing in Toronto, Canada, so they've got some questions there.
They're not exclusive to the USA. So a lot of these stats are very inclusive of Canada, the UK, Ireland, parts of EMEA, Europe. Look, if I'm honest, I think the bulk of the jobs in e-discovery are stateside, right? Just from a proportionality perspective, volume of jobs in London versus volume of jobs, in New York, you can't compare the two. There are a lot more jobs available in New York than there are in London, but this data is aggregate, and our intention is to put out a jobs report this year in the next couple of months where there are some very specific call outs to different geographic areas. It's funny, I was on I guess, sort of a leadership call with a woman's group at a very large vendor, talking about different geographies. And you know, we'll see this in the salaries. Maybe let's just jump to it, MT. Let's look at
Yeah,
the
let's jump in because we've got 20 minutes.
yeah, let's look at the
Stefan, I
salaries.
want to hear from Mike. Yeah.
This was the observation that Stefan made, and I think it's worth sort of unpacking, which is what you're starting to see here. And now
You don't see anything yet.
you should see U.S. law firm salaries.
That's up. That slides up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
U.S. law firm salaries, rate of hire, you know, meaning what people are actually paying to acquire talent. You'll see that this salary here, and then if you go to the next one, which is vendors, MT, those numbers aren't that different when you start looking at senior project manager associates, senior PM team leads here on the vendor side. They're moving up on the vendor side now a little bit from November to December. 110, 150, we're getting PMs at 150 at vendors. That's the highest we've seen that number. Now go back, MT, to the law firm slide. Most law firms also sort of paying the same here on the high end of this range. This is the democratization of compensation as a result of a post-pandemic world that we live in. We're finally starting to see it. It's taken us almost 5 years to get there. But what we're seeing is essentially because people can hire remotely now, and it's much more difficult to get people to come in for hybrid or in-office jobs, and they're not quite willing to pay extra yet to do it. Meanwhile, salaries have gone up for people at the vendor side who are fully remote, and you know, the availability of talent fully remote versus the availability of talent that's willing to come into a specific geographic office, they've sort of equivocated. And what we expect to happen in the years ahead are salaries are going to go up for in-office jobs, whether they're law firm or vendor. They're going to have to go up because they're going to need to pay those people more money for them to not take jobs that are fully remote. But remote.
One of my observations here was that the West Coast seems to be calibrating quite well. When in the past, looking back historical 5 to 10 years, they tended to be a bit below, maybe 15% below where the East Coast was, but the demand didn't necessarily minimize. If anything, there was a lot more competitive need for people in place at offices on the West Coast.
Correct. And you're seeing now Midwest is almost, you know, up there too with what people are getting paid in the East and West Coast, whereas the Midwest used to be dramatically behind, right?
Yeah.
Not anymore, because they're losing talent to remote jobs that don't care where they are. And, you know, they're trying to hire talent from their backyard still, because most law firms are still hybrid. Most law firms are not fully remote.
I know, but that's the elephant in the room, literally as of yesterday, right? With the federal workforce being told to come back to full in the office. So there's
Correct.
definitely some fluidity that's happening there. That's one of the trends that I think was key in our discussion for 2024, and where we're in a possible transition. We'll see how it plays out into 2025. Is the hybrid options and or the organization's push to have people back full-time in the office. So that's an ongoing conversation that from a manager level, you have to have with individuals to kind of navigate, but you're also trying to align with the goals of your organization, make sure you're sustainable with your approach and retaining the talent.
Correct. And hybrid or remote work has been a retention strategy for companies for the last 5 years. Here you'll see month over month. And what's interesting here is there's not a lot of difference month over month. What you can see is the jobs are almost 100% hybrid or fully remote. The dark blue line is the fully remote percentage. And you can see here it's hovering at about 1/4 of the marketplace, right? About 1 in every 4 jobs is fully remote. But so few jobs are in office. I think we just had a surge in October of up to a couple of clients that finally got their jobs filled, right? Because clearly nobody else was getting jobs filled if they were fully in the office for the first 9 months of the year, right? We didn't have a single candidate take a job that was 4 to 5 days in an office for 9 months. So you could see how hard it is to fill those jobs, what a small candidate pool is available, and that then extends the timeline to hire exponentially compared to how quickly others can hire if they're hybrid or even fully remote, which is faster. What's interesting about this dark blue line, though, is most of those jobs that are fully remote are contract, and not just vendor, but law firm contract too. When you're a contractor, you sort of fall usually into a different category of permissions and policies than if you're an FTE direct hire of a firm or of a vendor. And as a result, contractors tend to be able to work anywhere. When you look at contract versus direct hire, you could see just how erratic the market has been in terms of hiring contractors, hiring full-time. It's definitely something that is peaks and valleys, right? When people get busy and they feel like they need to staff up, that's where contractors in ESI are playing a big role, as opposed to, say, in privacy, where you're going to see a much steadier increase in utilization of contractors because they can't get the buy-in and the headcount for FTEs. Ediscovery got buy-in and headcount for FTEs. The problem was, could they get them fast enough? Could they get them 3 days a week or 4 days a week in an office? Could they get them at the price point that they needed? All of that complexity is now really playing heavily into the hiring process for any search in e-discovery.
We've got a couple of questions, so I just want to get to them quickly. And the first one, and I'll have you expand on it, Jared, but I want to throw this one over to Stefan, because he manages, right? He's got a large project management pool. Are the project manager roles open to PMs from other industries, industry agnostic? Stefan, any thoughts on that?
That's we tend to, as far as just the learning curve and the scale of how you have to operate as a PM versus a professional PM in another organization or the traditional professional PM can be a little different. But looking at the individuals and absolutely looking outside of the box of just the group of people that sit within our space has been part of our focus in the last probably year or two. And will continue to be something that we're going to evolve into. So we don't write it completely out, but generally we're talking to people that have 3 to 5 years of legal experience so they can talk that language, and we're not training that part to them. But it's not impossible. I think if you can consult with people about that are in the ESI world and talk about what's the value proposition of what they are doing to accomplish getting to material goals, helping with efficiency, then you at least prepare for the interview as well as prepare your resume in a way that you can kind of talk about your agility, your ability to solve, challenging issues that happen within weeks. And that kind of narrative could easily play out to make you an attractive candidate.
Awesome. And Jared, any thoughts on that?
I mean, Stefan is a diplomat. I'm going to be far more direct and say, not a chance. It's never going to happen. It's not real, guys. Look, if you want to break into e-discovery and you're not in legal and you're not using e-discovery technology, you're going to have to do, in my opinion, 3 things. 1, go get your ACEDS training so that you know what you're talking about and speak the language. 2nd, go get a technology certification, probably a relativity one, probably a Rel 1 one, because that's what the skill set that people are looking for to get the job. And the 3rd thing that you probably will need on top of that is a relationship. You need someone to go to bat for you to break into this business. Nobody is hiring people without experience in this space, guys. They don't have the patience. They need people billable immediately. They don't have farming programs. There's no farms in e-discovery. There is only people wanting exactly what they're looking for to plug and play into a billable resource. Now, if you're somebody who's like, hey, but I've been an LPM and I'm willing to do all that and transition into e-discovery, but I need 150 on the base, you are wasting your time. You're not going to get it. You have got to be willing to take a massive step back in compensation, probably a 50% pay cut to break in, having 0 experience in the space. I don't make the rules. I just have to play by them because they're mandated by my clients. But I'm telling you, if you don't invest in yourself, other people are not going to invest in you in this space. So you've got to go get the education and training.
And we don't make him say that. So, Mike.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jared. It's hard to break, like if someone working in construction is not going to break into e-discovery. It's not going to happen. However, just sort of tuning into a comment that our friend Tom made in the chat, there's a lot of skills in project management that are absolutely transferable. You would absolutely have to take some kind of entry-level role. You're not going to sort of walk in at, you know, the 150K mark or as a manager or anything like that. The skills are transferable for sure. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be organized. You need to have a structured process for almost everything you do. But that doesn't translate from, you know, aeronautics or construction to e-discovery. You got to be able to talk the legal language, to Stefan's point. So I guess I kind of agree with both, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think PMs, I guess I'll clarify. I do agree that 9 times out of 10, we're going to go with someone that speaks that language and has a command of project management process. So outside of a relationship or some other multidisciplinary, like if you're really strong in cyber, then there's things that we can do to multidiscipline you and, you know, kind of give you the litigation support side or keep you focused on what you have to focus in cyber. So it's just looking at those opportunities and what you can make of it. And I do agree, training experience will always be your advocate. And a lot of it's also, how do you interview? What kind of grit do you have? What kind of emotional EQ do you have? So those are all things that play into it outside of what's on the piece of paper.
Absolutely. And I've actually seen people make the transition from like IT roles. Like that happens.
And
we've done internal transition too of we have people that worked in our service/messenger team of the firm, and they're now, you know, deep EDLS analysts and project managers. So those things can happen, but I'm curious, within an organization, it's easier to be more organic.
But we're not saying it's thousands of project managers from construction or anything else that are moving into IT. There's particular things, there's drive, there's
might be
training.
worth looking, Maribel, at where the jobs are. Do we have that slide in here, MT?
Yeah, let's look at that.
Corporation versus vendors, right? Take a look at the second pie chart over here. This is the first time in 10 years that law firms have outpaced vendors in terms of hiring that we've tracked. And you say to yourself, well, why is that, Jared? Well, for a couple of reasons. The first of which, law firms are adopting Relativity One. Relativity One is bringing more business back in-house. They are now staffing up people to bring them back in-house. I can tell you right now, there's not a single law firm with that agenda that is going to hire somebody with no Relativity One experience to come and do that job. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Second of all, the vendors are running lean. The number one motivator for job seekers, which we can look at in a second, has been burnout. And that's because the vendors have not been hiring people, and they've been mostly hiring FTEs to replace people who leave. Now, what typically happens in years past are the vendors scale up and down dramatically with contract staff. They didn't do that this year. Last year, they put that work on the shoulders of their existing FTEs, and those people are burnt out and looking for work for that exact reason. They're not getting that support. They feel like they're working 80 hours a week. They're motivated by quality of life. Less than 5% of the jobs are at at software companies, and less than 5% are at corporate. Corporate e-discovery is a totally different beast. And I'm sure Tom and anyone else on this chat would agree with that. And I think there's opportunity to make different kinds of strategic hires in corporate where someone may bring an expertise that's specific to that kind of business, and they can train them, they can ramp them, because often they're learning their process very specifically. With law firms and vendors, they're looking for the ability for people to service lots of different customers from lots of different potential areas of maturity. And generally, they're looking, when they have a net new hire, to buy that experience already. And they often lack, again, I don't make the rules, the patience to wait 6 to 12 months for someone to come up to speed to become billable. When you're working in-house at corporate, you are a cost reduction center, value add. You are not necessarily, unless I'm missing something, a billable resource for the organization. When you're at a law firm or a vendor, you bill. You're how they make money. And so it's a different set of expectations, which is where 95% of the jobs are in e-discovery from a hiring strategy approach. It's just might be worth sort of looking at it from that lens as well, because I think it's an important perspective to have.
All right. So we've got a couple more questions, and I want to go through some of them quickly. So someone asked, let's see, we've got a lot going on in here. Can someone from India join this field remotely? Yes. Answer is yes. There's a ton of e-discovery people in India. We've got quite a few members in ACEDS all over the country. So I would say that's a definite yes. Does anyone want to expand on that? I think we're covered there, right? All All right. And then we have the other question is, do you need a legal background necessarily, like a lawyer, to be a PM? And I think we answered that as well. You do not need to have a lawyer's background to be a PM in ediscovery.
It's a matter of what substantive experience you have had, and do you know how to contribute to the value of the organization you're joining. So I think it does help in some ways, or it has helped in the past when you are a lawyer and you have that practice, because then you're able to practice experience, because you're able to expand into advisory services, which can be very helpful to any organization trying to navigate that risk.
Awesome.
Can I go back to the India question for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a perspective that I think is helpful.
Let's do it.
If you're an applicant in India and you do not have a work visa in another country, you're going to have a very difficult time getting those jobs. Let's just be honest. There are not a lot of work visas being sponsored right now, and that may not be the path. The path is to find a vendor who has a real commitment and offering for offshoring, and to find those teams that are localized in India and get with those logos where offshoring to India is part of their strategic value proposition to their customers, and then target those companies rather than just openings you see that are in other locations and then ask them if it can be remote from India, because the likelihood of it being a yes is slim to none. I think you need to look for jobs at companies that are based in India, that have a footprint in India, that whose offerings are, we're offshoring to India, and come be a part of our team.
And there's quite a lot of them in India. If someone wants a list, we can send a nice list of various different service providers. One last question. I think this is just, I'm gonna direct them to reach out to True. Any resource recommendations for tailoring a resume to a position, adding buzzwords? Jared, you have a whole team that works on that, right?
We have a webinar that we did on how to make an ediscovery resume. We have two, actually, one for sales professionals and one for ediscovery project managers. I recommend you watch them. We give you a top 10. It's a really, and even if you're a manager or an analyst or something that's not exactly those two things, it's still sort of evergreen information. I definitely encourage you to watch them. They can be found for free on our website. But I would just say this. I'll answer it with a sort of more modern answer that maybe people aren't talking about as much, which is if you're using ChatGPT or you're using AI and you're saying, take this job description and make my resume sound more like it, I can tell you right now, my organization has a filter to sift through and identify things that we think were ChatGPT generated. So our customers are going to develop them too. People are going to get smarter about this kind of thing. The worst thing you can do is make your resume look like exactly what the customer wants and then go out on an interview and not have answers to back up what's on paper. That's going to put you in, a blacklist position probably with that customer, where what you've done now is you didn't fail because you didn't have the skills. You failed because you misrepresented that you did. And that becomes something that can be really dangerous for job seekers who are developing a reputation in the marketplace for the first time.
We've got a lot of questions and we've only got 2 minutes. So if everyone is okay here, Stefan, do you have to jump off? Can we have another 5 minutes of your time? All right, awesome. So let's extend a little bit. So anyone who wants to stay on for a little bit longer, we're going to extend. Jared, what's next?
Well, let's just maybe go back to the data. Well, you can see here also compensation is worth looking at, right? Most of the jobs are between 1 and 150. A very small percentage in the higher range and even a more smaller percentage in the lower range. We're starting to see that expand because we're seeing salaries start to go up for middle market people that they're not able to get what they need at 150, the customer. That salary is going up. We're also just seeing more jobs start to open up at 150 to 250 to 200. 200 plus still thin, but 10% is a healthy chunk of the marketplace, actually, considering, if we did the same sort of analysis in some of our other verticals, it would be less than that. So we expect that salaries are going to go up next year across the board. Might be worth going back and just seeing what we missed, MT, in terms of data that we want to share with everybody very quickly.
And while she's doing that, one question on salaries is document review attorneys. So do we think salaries will go up on that? So there was a question on that.
No. All you're doing is reviewing documents, you need to very quickly get a different set of skills. And what I mean by a different set of skills is I hear customers have anywhere from 10 cents to 50 cents plus per doc on air. That means that's going to be a lot less than a doc review attorney. That means people are going to experiment with it because it's now cost effective. Licensing is already out for responsive. Now it's out for priv. If I were a doc review attorney and all I was doing was reviewing documents, I would be figuring out, how do I become the person that's teaching prompts to some sort of AI technology, whether it's air or something else, and leveling up to the next set of skills that will be required for people, where pure human first pass review is a thing of the past. I don't think it will be a thing of the past tomorrow, but I think we're looking at a 3-year horizon if I'm being like edgy, 5 years if I'm being completely realistic, and 10 years if something happens that just deters adoption, which I think is unlikely. Stefan has some strong opinions on this. I would love to hear what he has to say.
The focus on the upskilling. Look at kind of the downstream values of what it is you're trying to kind of solve to. So certain aspects of review are more expensive than others. Understand the underlying dollars and cents and the process of it. And this is where generative AI solutions are starting to make their headwinds. And so if you could be on top of that technology, I think someone asked, what is AIR? AIR is Relativity's generative AI offering. And there's other solutions that are really kind of coming to surface in the market now. So a lot of experience is being had, a lot of really like worthwhile experience of what to do and what not to do, situational benefits that do calculate to real value. It's investing in that and your education around that. More importantly, getting your hands on the buttons and really experiencing how it works and providing advice around a good defensible process. That is a great place to upskill and follow the path wherever it's going to go.
And look, you got to put your hand up. Start by putting your hand up. Just volunteer. Go to your supervisor. Say, what do I got to do to get involved with this? You'd be surprised how many people just, that initiative is sometimes enough to get the attention of somebody who's like, yeah, come, let me pull you into this project with me. I mean, that's how most of us on this call got into ediscovery to begin with 25, 30 years ago, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, Jared, what else do we got?
Burnout, #1 motivator for 12 consecutive months.
Always the views expressed.
And money is moved. In December, money actually moved up to the #1 slot. So people have moved from, I'm burnt out and I'm willing to move laterally, to I need more money. Wherever I go, I need to be paid more money. It doesn't matter. I don't believe it'll be better anywhere else. That's going to be hard to use as a selling point if you're an employer for the next 3 to 6 months of, hey, come here, you're going to have high quality of life. It's very hard to convince candidates of that. They'd rather you just say, I'll pay you a little bit more money for your skill sets to give you an increase on this job move. We've seen candidates move from, I don't want to talk about what I'm making, to telling us exactly what they're making and I need to make more, which is a shift in social consciousness from what we saw happening in the Great Resignation in 21 and 22, where people were much more, new laws had passed, they wanted to be much more confidential and just go with desired salary. Now people are like, here's what I'm making, I'm underpaid, I need to go to the next level. And you can tell them that, which is a very different energy from the job seeker. So I think you're going to see salaries go up because the candidate marketplace is requiring.
You think the #5 remote hybrid will get a little more of an uptick in 2025 because it'll be a big part of the conversation?
No, I mean, only if employers move from hybrid to fully in office, that's going to trigger attrition, right? Okay. The fastest way to get your existing staff to leave is to go from 3 days or less to 5 days in an office. We saw what happened with Amazon. They sort of reversed in some ways, but resumes flooded out the door. Having said that, I think job seekers who are saying, I'm looking to leave because I want to be more remote are becoming fewer and far between, because most of them either have that already or know that the likelihood of them getting that means sacrificing something else. Like, I have to take less money in order to be 5 days remote instead of 2 days remote, and I'm not willing to do that. So I think most people have accepted if they want to move up in other ways, they're going to have to continue being hybrid, particularly law firm employees. And the vendors haven't been hiring in enough volume to have an explosion of fully remote opportunities even available.
Do we think the burnout is going to move down, or do we think it'll stay up there over 2025?
No, it's going to move down. People are going to want more money. I think unemployment's going to move off this chart completely. We're seeing like the amount of people that are unemployed or getting fired being decreasing pretty steadily since August of last year. So I don't even think that'll be on here. That's on here because there was so much riffing in the first 2 quarters of last year, not so much the last 2. I think number 4 is a real motivator. And I think what you're actually going to see is number 4 sort of becoming, how do I get into AI? I think you're going to see, we're already seeing it, right? We're posting AI jobs. We're talking to candidates about the AI stuff we're working on. And our e-discovery talent is flooding to us with an interest in transitioning into a different vertical within legal. And so I think you're going to see that be a big motivator.
Yeah.
I do
Mike,
think,
Stefan.
I do think that that whole approach to AI, that you have a program, you have a vision, and you're enacting action behind that vision, can be a real attractor. I know that we're publicly, making that, the firms made public awareness of what we're trying to do with that as a practice, and had different tools we work with, and that's been very helpful. But ultimately, the experience that we're developing is what's key, of, again, what to do, what not to do, that kind of translates into real value that much faster. But if the organization is doing that, and if the candidates are kind of focused on that, I think that can be a nice little marriage with being able to, create a place where they can have some challenge.
Yeah, I'll also offer this to all the people who, or maybe earlier in our conversation, Stefan, or PMs and other verticals that are looking to break in. You might have a much easier time breaking into legal AI because the employers don't know what they're looking for the most part yet. A lot of times it's a window shopping experience trying to figure out, oh, well, they've got this piece and this piece, and I can fill in this gap. And they are much more willing on the employer side to look at the candidate holistically and see how that human can come and do things and have an impact. Whereas e-discovery, they're definitely looking at things from a very specific perspective, most of them, 95% of the market, with a skill set that you can go and get, you can go and train and buy, or you can get through experience, but you can't go and get training on AI or a certification on AI that gives you that instant leverage in the job market yet. It's too new. So in some ways, maybe some of you on this call want to rethink, well, what's the trajectory where I could really say, hey, I did this study in school and I have a degree in mathematics and I really want to apply it to the law because I went through this personal experience, that was where I experienced injustice with someone in my family. And that narrative might resonate with an employer. I don't think that narrative necessarily resonates with most e-discovery hiring managers right now.
Awesome. All right. What else do we want to cover?
Well, we're way past time. So,
Yeah.
I would just say, let's let everybody know we've got 2 amazing individuals coming up that are, very different from each other and from Stefan. So Rose is a practicing litigator in e-discovery, probably one of the foremost leaders in the space of practicing attorneys out there. And Kelly, also a practicing attorney, but from a very different perspective, owns her own company. And Kelly's also going to be bringing a bunch of data that sort of backs up our narrative, which is in Republican presidencies, and particularly new presidencies, litigation skyrockets. Deregulation is going to lead to increase in litigation, and everyone in e-discovery should be prepared for a very busy couple of years. There's going to be a lot of people suing each other. It's a good time to be in e-discovery, and there's going to be more of what we didn't see last year. More contract hiring, that means more remote opportunity, more law firm hiring, more demand for project managers, more middle management hiring as companies have to expand, more contract staffing because they've been lean for so long. I'm very optimistic about what's available for the community in 2025.
Stefan, any last words?
I greatly appreciate being a part of this. I always love hearing you guys because I've been a fan of this particular webinar series, and thanks for letting me join. And thanks to everyone else who listened to us and participated. Much appreciated.
Good. We'll have to bring you back then. So
Sure.
Awesome. Mike, any last words from you? You're on mute, my friend.
Don't yell at me. Just thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Maribel, and thank you everybody for the interactive chat.
Yeah.
That's what really makes these fun, and you know, hearing everybody talking. Obviously, you guys know how to reach us, so just reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yep. And so I will leave us with this. We'll be back next month. You can go to our upcoming calendar to find all the details. You can actually subscribe to future ones as well, not just next month's, but future ones. I will definitely share some Canadian organizations and ediscovery. I have also put, there's a free conference. It's a global conference. It is, Stefan will be speaking there. Jared is not speaking there this year, but has in the past and probably will in the future. Mike and I will both be speaking there. You can get free CLEs, free SEDS is Certified eDiscovery Specialist credits. And this is going back to what Jared said. This is an educational conference put on by the University of Florida, Levin College of Law, all about ediscovery. So we highly recommend people to join that. And if you've got questions, you have anything, feel free to reach out to Jared and his team. They're always available to help you with your career goals. And we here at ACEDS are as well. And I'm sure, please connect with Stefan on LinkedIn. He'll be happy to help. He's an awesome mentor and advisor. He's one of my advisory board members personally. So I highly
Let's be honest, he's a legend in the space, guys.
He is a
If you
legend.
didn't know.
Lower the bar, baby.
Saying.
We will see you next month. Thank you all for joining us.
Take care, everyone.